His sincerity was a mask, Scully. The man's motives never changed.
You think he used me to save himself at the expense of the human race?
Now, he knows what that science is worth, how powerful it is. He'd let nothing stand in his way.
He may be right. But for a moment I saw something else in him. A longing for something more than power. Maybe for something he could never have.
Welcome to Most Unwanted and X-Files podcast. I'm Chex, and I'm joined as ever by Luke to talk about some X-Files. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing good. More importantly, how are you doing? The globetrotter over there?
It's a weird name because to everybody else, I was here last week. You know what? I listened to last week's episode. Good job, by the way, in all the editing as I was going, kept the podcast going. But then I listened to the last part of last week's episode, and I honestly, a pit in my stomach, because as I realised this is more entertaining than me. I thought to myself, people listening are going to be like, why can't we have this back?
What, a man losing his mind talking to himself?
If I ever go globe-trotting again, we don't need to record episodes in advance. You record mine and your part, because that was amazing.
Do you know what the mental thing of that one was? I wrote the first line down of what I wanted to say. Everything else, I just kept, I just listened to what I said and tried to respond to myself. So I was literally having a conversation with myself. It's the weirdest thing I've ever done.
So good. Yeah, I honestly thought to myself, God, we just need a whole episode of this. So let us know what you thought, because if Luke will do it. Luke will do it if enough people ask for it.
I mean, I don't know how many of those I can do.
But yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back watching X-Files. It's been a fairly long break for us. How's it been over here? Are you holding down the fort?
Yeah, not too bad. I don't think there's been too much to sort of mention. Well, I think the only thing you've missed in this country is political annihilation just going on.
It is funny because we stopped off for a couple of days in Dublin just before we got back, and I've basically not had time to check the news on anything. Mm-hmm. I've sort of kept to myself and just been in the moment most of the time, the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I went out for a smoke outside the hotel in Dublin, and I got talking to this woman there, and she was just saying, "Oh, where you been?" And we was talking about like what we'd been up to, and she goes, "Oh, have you been keeping up with the news in England?" I said, "No." She went, "It's a shit show."
I mean, in summary, correct.
Like, what's happened? And then she just gave me the lowdown. I was like, I can't be bothered with that.
I'm going back to America.
Yeah, I wanted to get back on the plane.
Yeah.
I kept my eye out while I was over there for X-Files locations.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, yeah.
What I realised is, when travelling Route 66, or basically just, a road trip across country in general, what I realised is there's not a lot of time to do much of anything. Like, there are certain states and cities where, okay, I don't want to start naming and shaming, but I will. There was one of the first cities we stopped in was Springfield, Illinois.
Okay, yeah.
And you're excited. It's one of the first cities you stop in after Chicago, and we got there, and there wasn't a lot to do there, especially of the night. Like, it was just, there was nothing really there. And so you find that some places you have a lot of time where you're just sort of trying to find something to do, and there's not a lot to do. And then other cities, like Oklahoma, for example, we got there, we did the Oklahoma bombing memorial, which was incredible, just so moving. But we didn't get to see much of the city, because that took 2-3 hours, and we needed to be moving on to Texas before long, to keep the road going. So it's tough to put in things like that. We did go to the Navajo Nation, which I thought that's got something to do with X-Files.
Yeah.
We almost got arrested there.
What did you do? Did you wander into a sacred area?
Spot on, basically.
I was listening to a book the other day that was talking about that, and I was like, I hope Chex doesn't do anything like that while he's in America.
I had no idea. So basically, there's this because Route 66, it's for those who don't know, it's basically a decommissioned road. So you're going on Route 66, and then you're getting back onto the interstate, and then back onto the Route 66, and taking a load of different roads, but you're following the general route. And there's this lovely strip of Route 66 takes you out into the desert. It's beautiful. And I was like, I'm definitely driving that. So we're driving down, and it's beautiful. Like these big, like those classic big red mounds.
Yeah.
And we're driving through there, and it's no one. We haven't seen anyone for 20 miles. We've got the open road to ourselves. And we pull over to have a break. And I said, oh, this is beautiful. I said, Jem, go and stand over there. We'll take a picture. It'll look lovely. So I've got my phone out, literally. I've not seen anyone for ages, right? Got my phone out. Within seconds, I see a blue light flashing, and a police car comes running in, pulls over. He was lovely, to be fair to him. He was just he basically gave me a bit of a wink and just said, you can't take pictures of this. This is sacred ground. You're not allowed to take pictures of any of this. And I was like, I have no idea. But of course your heart goes, doesn't it? But when foreign police and police have just suddenly pulled you over.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, I had no idea. And he said, are you taking pictures of each other? I was like, yeah. And he's like, he basically gave me a wink and went, as long as one of you are in it, it's fine. Just don't take pictures of the mountains themselves. So basically saying, take your photos, fuck off.
I mean, you can't get any fairer than that, really.
No. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I only found out about it recently as well. Literally, I was reading a book about something that similar kind of thing, but never. It's just something we don't ever encounter in this country. No. I don't know anywhere that's like that. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, I had absolutely no idea, but I mean, it is stunning. It is incredible. And I had a little bit of a read up afterwards, and it's you have to go through a lot of ordeal to actually get permission to film there. So it would be interesting to sort of see. I don't know whether they actually filmed it. I'm not sure.
From what I remember, I know they painted a lot of rocks, so I don't know if it's exactly the same or if they just used a set, you know what I mean, or somewhere that looks similar. So probably not, but who knows? Yeah.
The only other thing I mean, there's a lot of stories. I'd love to tell everyone everything. I can't remember most of it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to mention was when we went to LA, we did a tour of Paramount Studios, and that sort of stuff fascinates me. And again, I mean, not X-Files at all, to be honest, but it's got a little bit of that. But more just sort of filmmaking and TV making in general. It is crazy what they're capable of. They put us in New York, and it was they showed us all the different scenes that was filmed in this one street, and it was just oh yeah, it's just tricks of the camera. Cloverfield was on this no bigger than a house, and it was just a street in New York, and they showed us all the different angles of how they filmed it and made it look like a big city. And there's some of the buildings in the distance are no taller than me, and it's just perspective and stuff like that. It is insane, but definitely if you're in that area, definitely something I'd check out.
Sounds you got all the tricks of the trade. Did you tell them about your ghost photo technique?
I told them all about my ghost photo. They said they was blown away.
Yeah, what a pioneer.
They've said you've revolutionized Hollywood.
If we see that in the next J.J. Abrams film, we know.
It's exactly the same film, but the Cloverfield monster's kind of not there.
It's like an apparition.
It's scarier. It's much scarier.
Oh, God.
Oh, but, I mean, I could talk about it forever. However, I've spent a month not talking about X-Files, and I'm hankering to get on with it. Should we get on with this new episode? This week, we are going to be looking at episode 15 of season 7, N and Me. I think we surmised last week that was a play on words for enemy, but I don't know whether that's the case.
Well, I can give you some early Luke's production notes.
That'd be great, yeah.
So, ennemi is French for like a friend, but it also sounds like enemy, like enemy as in...
That's interesting. I wonder whether that's the origins of the word enemy then. But then why would it be like a friend?
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was quite... When I read that, I was like, oh, that's quite clever, actually. I've never even thought of that before, but then again, I don't speak fluent French, so I had to figure it out.
Yeah, well...
but yeah, that's the origins of the name.
Okay, so, yeah, it sort of reflects the dual tone of this episode.
Yeah.
This was directed by Rob Bowman and written by William B. Davis, which I believe... Isn't that the guy that plays Cigarette Smoking Man?
It is. It is
I
the very
so.
man.
I didn't want to make a fool of myself by committing to it, so I thought I'd say it in the form of a question.
And then you go, yes, you go, I knew that. I knew. That. Yeah,
I knew. That was my genius. Yeah, William B. Davis. He's not wrote one before, though, has he? I don't think so.
No, another bit of production notes. This is the first episode he's ever written.
Wow.
For, I don't know even TV as a whole, but definitely for the X-Files, this is the first episode, so yeah.
Put himself front and centre, I see.
Yeah.
Stay humble.
There's a quote I read it later on, which was quite funny, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Okay, so the only other bit of notes I've got on this is that the original air date was March the 19th, year 2000.
2000.
And we start with a bit of a self-contained story, to be honest. It starts like most other X-Files cases, where we get like the start of a mysterious circumstance. And in most X-Files episodes, we would go on to explore that mystery, whereas in this one, we don't really. Like, it's kind of a self-contained mystery, and then that's just the end of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
We are in Goochland, Virginia.
Right, now, first point, Goochland, is that an actual place? Like, I mean, it's obviously an actual place, but who the hell decided to name that place?
I'm just looking at it now, and it's a very, very prestigious place, Luke. Be very careful what you say here.
We find out that it's named after, like, Charles Gooch, who was, like, a human rights activist or something like that.
There is 861 people in that town that could get very angry at what you say next.
Shit. All right, I'll keep it on the line. I'm just saying it's got a funny sounding name, but you know, we all live in.
Okay. So it derives its name from the fact that the community is the location of the county's courthouse, while the county in turn is named for Sir William Gooch, 1st Baronet, the Royal Lieutenant Governor of Virginia from 1727 to 1749. What are you going to say about that, Luke?
17 what? 47 was it?
1727 to 1749.
Right, so that means he was a British colonist. So we can take the piss. We're allowed to take the piss.
That's a quick math. I like it. The commitments.
If it was after that, I'm like, I ain't going to say nothing. It's not my country.
So yeah, we are in Goochland, Virginia, and we are focusing on Jason McPeck. Basically, he's being driven. I mean, it's hard to tell what's going on at the start. He's being driven through like an angry mob whilst his parents are sort of consoling him. At first, I got the impression, because I kept on seeing like glimpses of signs of like saying murderer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wondered what this was, yeah.
I thought maybe like the kid had like accidentally killed somebody or something like that, and like, I'm not sure. But we quite quickly find out as more specifically the father is putting this kid to bed, that they're not angry at the kid, they're angry at the parents, because they have chosen to not give this kid who has cancer any medical treatment because it's against their religion.
Yeah.
Major fucked up. I was watching this going, that is horrendous. And like seeing this father turn around to this kid and say, I know you might be wondering whether they're right, but they might be able to cure your cancer, but they won't be able to cure your soul. God's giving you this. I was like, holy shit, this is fucked.
Yeah, I did write a note. Who's the worst dad, him or cigarette smoking man?
Him.
Yeah.
This is fucked. This
I'd
is
say
really
probably,
bad.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's like, it's for religious reasons, but still, it's like that's really, really like knowing that you're essentially condemning someone to die because of this. It's like surely there's a point where you have to go. Maybe we've gone a bit too far, but
as a child, no less. You know what I mean? Like who hasn't got the capacity to make decisions for himself.
I did while I was watching this. I was like, because I'm the exact same opinion of you, but then I also watched and I was like, am I maybe because we're not religious really at all? Are we too removed from that where we just go, this is awful, you know what I mean? Or is this like, is there some, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear from other people who are more religious, I guess, to see if, I don't know, if there's any basis of where it's coming from.
I suppose. I don't know. I think, how controversial do I want to get? That's the question.
that's what I thought. I was like, you could be very, very like sort of on the nose and call it what it is, but I'm also like, I try and sometimes go, because my immediate knee-jerk reaction was like, what a dick, why would he do this to? And I was like, am I too far in that camp to not have any kind of like...
You know what I think it is? I think, and this might be a tad too controversial, but so be it. I feel like this podcast is about, our true opinions. And so I'm going to just say how it is. I'm very much the same as you. I like to, even things I don't agree with. It's that old line of like, I don't believe in this, but I will fight for your right to believe this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that sort of way of thinking. And I'm very much the same as you. I respect other people's cultures and I respect this and whatnot. And I try and look at it from a different perspective than my own and sort of see what the different sides are. I feel like there is a line where I shouldn't be expected to, and I feel like condemning an 8-year-old to death is probably that line. Do you know what I mean? Is that controversial? I don't think it should be.
It doesn't say when you say like that. You go, yeah, it's kind of how is that controversial anyway? No, when I'm saying this, I'm fully in support of your view anyway. Like that's exactly why I think. But I did also think, is it like would it be different in like a different? Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, would it feel any different?
More religious community.
Yeah, like a more religious, yeah.
Especially a more insular community as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, I've drove through a lot of towns, and I know a lot of towns are very insular, and they rely on each other, and it's one of those where everyone knows their neighbours and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it is difficult. And usually I would try and get into that mindset, but fuck this.
Fuck this guy.
This kid didn't choose to be involved in it, you know what I mean?
I'm down with the syndicate or whatever they are now. doing the real Lord's work.
So yeah, this all happens. The kid goes to bed, cries himself to sleep, knowing that his parents don't love him. And all of a sudden, doesn't have to worry because God saves him. So
the angels save him.
A big bright light and an angel with a cigarette comes down, plucks him out of bed. No, he doesn't have a cigarette. But
I like to think that sounds like what's that Good Omens? Is it where like the angel and devil? It kind of reminds me of that, just like an angel with a cigarette. I feel like they need that kind of edge. Maybe that's what they need.
The Starbucks coffee. He sees this bright light, much like Samantha's vision, or Mulder's visions of Samantha's abduction. Mm-hmm. Bright light, the men in black walking towards them, and we assume everything's going to be all right, and we find out later after the intro that it is. Mulder and Scully are discussing the case after both have been given anonymous tip-offs to investigate it. Scully in the form of a newspaper she doesn't read usually, and Mulder in the form of what's Mulder get? I can't remember now.
The DARPA send him some information, basically.
Both about the same case, and they realise, someone's trying to get us to look into it.
Mm-hmm. Mulder makes a reference as well to Touched by an Angel, which I didn't realise until I googled the names that he said. Because he said he wants to find out, because they have been told that an angel cured him, and he said he wants to find out if I can't remember the actors' names now, but he said he wants to find out if it was this one or this one. I was like, who the hell are they? I googled them, and yeah, it's Touched by an Angel. Is that a TV show you got any recollection of?
To be honest, the reference went straight over my head.
No. I had no idea myself. I know the name of it from like hearing it elsewhere, but it's got angels in it probably.
I'm not gonna lie, it's probably not the best thing to admit as a podcast host about this specific subject, but I like to enjoy the episodes as much as possible in their fullness. So like, I used to take notes, like I used to take vast notes, and I realized quite quickly I was ruining the enjoyment of the episode.
Yeah.
And so rather than that, I try and watch the episode through full and then make notes afterwards of what I can remember and just general plot lines using like synopsis I find online. And so stuff like this, I do try and make a note of it, and I do make notes of it as I go through. Think I'm going to have to research that, and then stuff like this just slips through the cracks. You know what I mean? Like I'm just researching every reference that's made that goes over my head.
Literally, the only reason I was like, I wonder who they are. Paused it, googled it, and I was like, oh, okay, carried on again.
Oh yeah,
literally, that was the extent of it, basically.
Mulder and Scully go to visit this boy, who's happy as Larry. He's playing baseball. I think he's playing baseball. He's playing sports or whatnot. He's running around.
Outside, yeah.
And his parents say God saved him, and the kid agrees. He says the angels came down. They look like men in black suits. They pinched the back of my neck, and now I'm saved. And Scully has a look round the back of his neck and finds what we can only assume to be the same chip that was inserted into Scully's neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It makes it personal, basically. This connection does.
This seems like a good place to sort of stop, because this kind of concludes the story of the boy. Like, this is that they don't really go into it apart from referencing it.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the episode so far?
I had high hopes for it at this point, because it seemed like, this is mythology based, because we're referencing Scully's cancer from earlier, and then very quickly we saw that after this that we saw another returning face. That ties it all together. So I had quite high hopes for it at this point, where I thought, we're moving the story forward. I don't feel like it lives up to that expectation that it sets at the beginning, but we'll get to that when we get to the end, basically.
Yeah. So upon leaving, Scully she sees cigarette smoking man in the car. And in her car, should I say.
Yeah.
And who basically goes on to explain, and it's kind of a weird episode to review, to be honest, because this next line I'm about to say pretty much sums up the next 30 minutes of the episode.
Pretty much, yeah. Everything else is in the detail, essentially, isn't it?
It really is. He basically tells her, in not verbatim, but basically says to her, he's cured the kid, and he's cured Scully, he has the cure, and he wants to give it to Scully, but he doesn't want her to tell Mulder. He's sick of Mulder. He wants to give it to Scully because he's a dying man, and he wants the last thing to do to be a good thing for humanity. Now, First things first, he's dying because of an inflammation of his brain, I believe.
Yeah.
And he says it's because of a surgery he did. Is that the same one that we saw in that episode?
It's the one where with Mulder. Yeah. So it's that one. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was thinking of the right thing, or whether it was like an off-screen thing. So he's dying because of that, and he's in fact quite open, which is quite interesting. This is a very different cigarette smoking man we get in this episode,
or appears different. Anyway.
Appears different, exactly. Yeah. But with regards to like the conversations with Scully, he's being very open. And like, this is where I was like, I almost feel, and this is skipping ahead to like the final review of the episode, I'm starting to understand why people dropped off in season 7. Not because I'm not enjoying it, but there's a lot of episodes now, and this is just one of many, that are like, I'm starting to feel like, they really are just like rewriting everything, where the show was going. Mm-hmm. It feels very much like scrubbing a blackboard and starting again with a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I got this impression here, even though it doesn't turn out to be true, but like just cigarette smoking man going, this secret I've been trying to keep for 6 years, it's true. And do you know what I mean? It just felt very out of character to me. I understand there's the ultimate deceits that we find out from him at the end of the episode. But even him just coming out and saying, yeah, we kidnapped you and this is extraterrestrial, feels like something I wouldn't have dreamed about last season.
Yeah. It feels too on the nose or too direct, I guess.
Yeah.
So I understand that, yeah. I mean, I did like that they're sort of following up, saying that he's dying, which, again, there's a lot of it now. You have to, at the end of the episode, you have to go, how much is he telling the truth with a lot of this stuff? I do believe that he's dying, or potentially is dying. But then again, actually, if he's got the research at the end, maybe he won't be after this, so who knows? So I did like that they sort of follow up on that, because they mentioned a few episodes ago that he didn't look well, and we thought that was a bit out of character initially. And obviously we know it's because he has been dying basically since that operation. So I like that they followed that storyline, or that little thread of story. But yeah, I know what you mean. It is a bit direct, and it's a bit, I don't know, it's strange with where they're going with this, but I guess they kind of are doing this just to smash two characters together who we don't really have a long interaction with, maybe.
True, and to be honest with you, a lot of their interactions, what I think is good about this episode. I really enjoy the dynamic between these two.
100%, yeah.
He gives her a number to call, and curiosity gets the better of her. She doesn't tell Mulder. Rather than phone the number, though, she ends up tracing it and going to the office. She gets caught out, basically, like, security stop her from leaving, but basically insinuate that, like, Cigarette Smoke Man has been expecting her, and they lead her to the office. And that's where he tells her the full details of what's going on, that you need to come with me. It's a drive away, so it's not something we can do here. But the plan is, he thinks Scully's the right person to have this cure, and because she's shown good moral judgment, she's shown to be a good person, is what he's saying.
Yeah. And I quite liked, by the end of the episode, this is a bit that I quite liked, is this office that they've introduced, or this entire building that they introduce you to. You go, oh, is this where he's been working from all this time? Is this... Yeah. And we find out at the end, no, this is just a front for everything. Yeah. And this is just all part of the deception to trick Scully. So I quite liked this setup. By the time we got to it, I just wrote down it's a nice office initially, which it was, nice office. But yeah, this is all part of the long con of what he's doing, basically.
A very long con for sure.
Yeah.
I want to pull the curtain back for a second here.
Okay.
We know William B. Davis wrote this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into his head, like the actor's head, the writer's head. And he's seeing Cigarette Smoking Man. He's like, this guy's not as popular as Mulder. What has Mulder got that my character doesn't? And he knows what he's got. Mulder has got a range of Barbie and Ken-like costumes that he dons for certain circumstances to appeal to a wider audience. We've noted that before. Cigarette Smoking Man's been in a suit all his life. So what do we need? Fisherman, Cigarette Smoking Man.
Yes, yeah.
Because as soon as he gets out of that suit, he's instantly more likable.
Yeah, he's just a 9-to-5 guy, you know what I mean? Like,
he puts on that gilet, and he's like, I want to approach him and ask him for directions. I love him.
Lovely guy. And he's got all these friends that we see later on as well. He all the pals.
He goes around just to cuddle them.
Yeah.
How lovely. Oh, what a nice guy. The end of the episode, puts a suit back on. Evil bastard.
Yeah. It's all for show. It's all for show.
I want to see more of gilet, jumper wearing, fisherman, cigarette smoking man.
Maybe by the end, that's his retirement plan. Like,
I mean, I won't go too heavily on this because he does undress Scully while she's sleeping in that outfit. So.
There's a few things in this episode where I just wrote down. There's a bit of Dennis Reynolds in Cigarette Smoke. He's very creepy. You know what I mean? The stuff that he says, and he's like, there's one line later on where he's like, "The power to end somebody's life or let it flourish." And I was like, that is like full on creepy. It's like, Jesus Christ. So there's a lot of things that he does in this episode which are just, if you
Cross
said
the
it,
line.
yeah, it just make any normal person, and I mean, in this case, it makes him look a bit psychotic
Yeah.
in some way.
But he's wearing a gilet, and
He
so
is,
he
yeah.
can't be that bad. He can't be that
Well,
bad.
yeah. Who could be bad in a gilet? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So yeah, after all this, Scully begrudgingly agrees to go. She does leave a message from Mulder, but does begrudgingly go with him in the car she's driving. Not before this. I have notes about this.
Right.
Not before revealing to the camera that she's wearing a wire.
Yes.
This was a way unnecessary shot.
It was a bit like risque when
I was just like,
I was like,
there's better ways to do this than just like, I don't know. maybe I'm just like
you're
too
a prude.
PC. Yeah, I'm a prude. I was like, no, thank you. I mean, thinking about it, we have seen a really unnecessary shot of Duchovny in red Speedos. So
there we go, yeah.
Maybe it's just fair, but like this just feels like it just felt to me like, why have we put this in here?
We've after the last few episodes, we've kind of done Scully the dirty, you know, at the moment. Like first, like just sticking her head on a random CG body, and now this. Like, what's going on?
I don't know what it was because, like, it's not the fact that like it just felt weird. I can't put my finger on it, right? Okay. So if you was to show Scully, like, putting the wire on without when before she put a blouse on and stuff like that, you know, it's not sexual in any way. It's just a woman in a bra. I don't think that would have raised any alarm bells in my head. I'd have just been like, yeah, they're showing the wire and that's sound. And essentially, it's the same thing. I think it's the zoom.
Yeah, it is. There's
something weird about it.
Yeah, it's a bit Tarantino-esque, and it like it lingers on it too long.
It's Tarantino's foot shots. That's what it is.
Yeah. That I mean, when I was watching it, I did like. Do you know whenever you're watching something?
I've done New Day now. Sorry.
Excuse me over there. Don't you know that I can replace your audio?
Yeah, I
know. It'll make you say the most heinous things. No, they. Do you know when there's these shots in like TV or I always find it in anime is always the worst for this. When there's something that's on the screen, you just go, I hope no one walks in when this is happening. And at that moment, I literally was like looking over my shoulder. I was like, please don't walk in on this shot because there's no way explaining out of this. You know what I mean?
It very much reminded me that every shot in a show like this, every angle of a camera, it's all that none of it happens by accident. It's all
no, yeah. So
you know what I mean. And so someone chose that shot, and it just felt. I understand. I don't know. I don't know why it raised alarm bells because essentially it did what it needed to do, which was indicate to the audience that underneath her clothes she was wearing a wire. It's not. There's nothing necessarily bad about it. It just something about it felt weird, and I remember going, okay, like it felt it took me way out of it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean because it did come across as a bit too much for what it needed to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know what? Compare it to later on in the episode where, like, Cigarette Smoking Man gets her quite a low cut dress so that she couldn't wear a wire. Not a problem. I understand the purpose of it. And it wasn't sexual in any way. It was this shot, just this shot that I thought it was a bit weird. But yeah, she does wear a wire, and so we kind of still feel like she's a little bit cautious. She's not fully trusting the Cigarette Smoking Man. And then we get basically a series of conversations in the car, all basically saying the same thing, which is Cigarette Smoking Man reaffirming that what he's trying to do and the fact that he's done bad things. Yes, he says he's destroyed things a lot. But he wants to do this to sort of make amends for some of the stuff when death is like, or the impending death of himself has kind of given him a new lease on life at this point. And it's him trying to gain Scully's trust and doing a good job of it, to be honest, because every question she asks, he gives her an answer to. and also like we said before, interwoven with like visits to people he's cured. Of like this woman who he says is 118 years old, and she was on death's door. He saved her, and like him visiting her gives him this good feeling that he had her life in his hands, and he gave her life rather than took it away.
Basically, yeah.
What did you think at this point? Did you believe the story that he was peddling?
Not at this point. There's a point later on where I genuinely thought he showed the true him. Whether it is true remains to be seen. But at this point, I was still thought there's still something I didn't trust about him. I did like. There's one bit in here that I thought was quite symbolic as well, though. On the drive up there, he goes to smoke, and it's symbolic because of the end. I thought he goes to smoke, and Scully scolds him and says, "Are you really going to smoke?" And he gets rid of his cigarettes and says, "Oh, I should probably quit anyway." And he doesn't smoke for the rest of it. One, I thought it was funny. Cigarette smoking man gives up cigarettes. It's like, well, he's just man now. Which I'm sure I've made that joke before, but you know, we'll go with it. But also, I like the fact that this is him showing that he's turned a new leaf. Like, he's stopping smoking is him giving up on his past life. And then I jump forward a bit, but by the end of the episode, the very last thing that you see him do is get a new pack of smokes and light up a cigarette, completely like sort of unraveling. It's those two like instances like package up the entire his motivation for it, all of it. I thought it was really good how it did that.
It's very high school drama, like dramatic techniques.
Yes, yeah.
It's like it's as obvious as Angel and Devil on Shoulder, or or a screen freeze and like someone walks towards the camera. But those techniques are taught in drama because they're effective and very much like that popped out to me too. That like all the time he's not smoking, it's him changing a new leaf, and him having that last smoke at the end just really cements that he never changed one bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the sort of this sort of physical way of showing it. And yeah, talking about high school, there's the production note later on. I'll go into more detail later, but he kind of, when he wrote this, he based it on a William Shakespeare play, like, or bits of it. Like he took inspiration from that. So like it really does sort of take from like the core of drama, you know, really if it's taken from that. So that for me was like the sort of bit where I thought, oh, that's quite good, like how they did that and just set that up. But yeah, there's that was something there that I thought was interesting.
All the while on this road trip. Oh, before I get to Mulder, actually, we do notice a man following cigarette smoking man and Scully all this time. There was a point where Scully tries to sort of deliver the tape to Mulder to let him know what was going on, but this man sort of intercepts the message before it can get delivered, and we don't really know what this guy's deal is at this point. No,
we don't know if he's out to... They kind of leave it ambiguous until later on whether he's working with a cigarette smoking man or if he's... Because he mentioned right at the beginning, oh, if they find out what I'm doing, they'll kill me.
Yeah.
So we're sort of left that kind of twist as well of whoever it's actually that. But, I mean, yeah, by the end we find out that he's in cahoots with him.
Yeah.
So...
All the while, Mulder, meanwhile, has basically cottoned on that Scully's in trouble. Be it going to her apartment and someone describing her leaving with a guy that smokes like a chimney. He speaks to Skinner, and Scully even calls Skinner while he's there, but refuses to talk to Mulder. And so he can kind of get the gist that something's going on, and so he's dedicated himself to tracking it down, figuring out where she is, with the help of the lone gunman, which is singularly the greatest shot in this episode, when they knock on his door in disguise to make sure that they don't get spotted coming in.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the disguise? And
I mean, what's your personal favourite? Because I think it's low key, but
it's definitely for Hickey.
I like Pro Hickey. I like Bayer's one
cool
though.
Dude.
Just man wearing a corn shirt.
Yeah, slightly spiked hair.
Yeah. He's the new metal guy. But yeah, also I thought you were gonna say what's his name? I always forget the Langley. I thought he was going to say Langley, and I don't even know what to describe his outfit as.
Biker, I think.
Was it biker?
I think biker. I don't...
Not 100% sure, but...
Hickey definitely stole my attention. That wig. That wig is something special.
It was pretty good. I like how they just maintain this disguise as well, even going to the FBI building later on. They're just like, no, we need to maintain this mystique.
How suspicious would it look for anyone watching that 3 men enter the building and 3 completely different men left, Luke? Think about it. Yeah. They can't go back in normal outfits.
That is true. Yeah, they can't.
It would draw immediate suspicion.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they've thought about it more than I did. Anyway. Quick question as well, actually. They stop off at a gas station at one point, and it triggered a question that I wanted to ask you. So you obviously went across the country. Yeah. Did you ever have to have somebody fill, like, do you know, like you see in the old school ones where you stop and somebody comes and fills up your petrol for you?
Gas? No, we didn't. We did get told that some places still do that.
Oh, really?
And we did stop at a few, like, decommissioned gas stations. I think it was all the names like really mold into one. I think it was Shamrock. I want to say Shamrock. I think it was St. Louis. I'm not sure. There's a place called Shamrock, a little gas station where Elvis used to eat. We sat in his booth. And that, all those sort of decommissioned ones where you would have like attendants come and fill your car, but we never had any like that now, unfortunately. The shocking thing that, I mean, all of our American listeners are going, yeah, and like it's not interesting whatsoever, but you'll find this interesting. It's all one pump. What? Everything comes out of the same pump.
What, diesel and petrol?
Yeah, you choose which one you want, and it all comes out.
That's crazy.
It is wild.
That wouldn't work in this country because people would be filling up their engine with the wrong petrol left, the wrong fuel left, right, and centre. They literally have to put a thing on the diesel ones to stop you putting it into the tank. We're idiots. But anyway, or maybe they do it in America. They constantly are just getting the wrong fuel, and everyone's like, maybe we should have different pumps for this.
Yeah, why hasn't no one thought of a system?
Yeah, that's crazy. I guess it's kind of like, it reminds me of, do you know those Coke? Do you know when you go to a pub and they have the Coke machine?
Yeah.
There, I guess. I want Dr. Pepper in this one. It's kind of the same thing. Anyway, sorry for derailing there, but yeah.
No, it's fine. What do the lone gunmen find? They find emails from Scully's email accounts, emailing a guy called Cobra. And it seems like Scully and Cobra have been emailing for about the last 6 months. But they quickly find out that someone's been using Scully's accounts to email this Cobra, posing as Scully. Which is, to be honest, I couldn't quite figure it out at the time, but it sort of explains itself in the end. Yeah,
I didn't put 2 and 2 together at this point and thought, I thought somebody was setting up both of them at this point, or something was trying to, turn it against both of them, but I didn't think that it was going to be what it was in the end. I did like that he was called Cobra. That's a classic old school like undercover name, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta love it. All those sort of like American Eagle and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like just the cool animals. No one's nicknaming themselves, I don't know, Cricket. Do you know what I mean? Or like Worm.
So, on Metal Gear Solid 3, when you recruit, is it 3? One of them, anyway. You recruit people, and they get a code name, and obviously, like the naming convention of the code names in Metal Gear Solid is something animal, so it'd be like a descriptive word out. So, Solid Snake is the hero, anyway. So yeah, you have all these cool ones, cool things. But when you recruit just random people, they just randomly give them a nickname. So you can literally end up with people called like Slippery Jackweasel. It's like anyone's going to be inspired to feel by this man. There's some brilliant ones like of where they get the names from. Honestly, it's like they just randomly assign them, and it's just there's no thought to it. So there you go, Cobra.
Cobra's solid. You're safe with Cobra.
Anything that can kill you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is a good one. Like, if you called Shark, well, that's the good one. Or
Apex Predator, that's what you want.
Yeah.
You
A Panther, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That'd be a good one, yeah.
Hippo.
I mean, they are an Apex Predator. Yeah.
So yeah, they find these emails. Going back to Scully falls asleep in the car. Cigarette smoking man does the most uncreepy thing possible and like wipes her hair from her face and stares at her lovingly.
Yeah.
And he's in a gilet at this point, so it's fine.
It's fine, yeah. If it was wearing a suit,
that would be weird. It would have been so weird, but luckily he wasn't. Then off camera, off screen, he gets her naked, puts pajamas on, and puts it to bed. I don't feel like they stayed on this enough. Scully comes out, and she's angry. Of course she's angry. But the way she says it is, who put me in pajamas? And I feel like that sort of dilutes the crime here.
Yeah.
Because that sounds playful. That sounds, who did this? You shouldn't have done that. He had to have got her naked to put it in pajamas. Yeah, that's exactly. That's why are we not focusing on this part?
I like how quickly she gets over it as well. She's just like, you drugged me. No, I didn't drug you. All right, fair enough. That's okay. It's like,
my mistake.
Yeah. Sorry for the slander there. But yeah, it's just like, at this point, she goes back to trusting him eventually. And it's like, but hang on. He's literally stripped you naked, like, without your consent or what? Again, maybe... It feels weird saying maybe this is a crazy thought in 2022.
Listen, Luke, and you're getting on your high horse here. If you watch the episode carefully, he clearly explains he does it so she felt more comfortable. So I think you'll want to walk what you've just said right back.
Yeah, the excuse that everyone gives, I'm just trying to make you more comfortable. It's like, yeah.
Now let's undo those jeans.
Yeah. Yeah, just really creepy.
And she gets over it really quickly as well.
I know. That's the thing. She's like, I'll go to dinner with you next. I understand that's part of her mission, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like, whoa, hang on. It's like...
I did feel sorry for her, to be fair, because, and I think, in all fairness, jokes aside, I think Gillian Anderson played it very well in the sense of, she does go to leave, and then he basically says, oh yeah, keys are in the ignition, go. And giving her that freedom to leave, put it in her head of, I know something's off here. None of this feels right. However, I can't afford to not do this. Because of that 1% chance that it is real, I could save millions. And so, just because that, not even 1%, that was 0.1% chance, if there is that chance, I can't afford not to take that risk.
Yeah.
And so it is heartbreaking a little bit.
She's kind of trapped by the situation. Not trapped in the sense that she can't leave, but her morals don't let her. You know what I mean? Just being an FBI agent, you have to investigate these things. So,
if he'd have tried to grab her or physically stop her to going, I think she'd have got away and wouldn't turn back.
Exactly, yeah.
But the fact that it was like, okay, it's your choice.
But again, it's where he's clever in this, that he knows this. Like, he knows that she's investigating. She doesn't want to get Mulder involved. One, to not endanger him, and two, to not lose this opportunity and that. So yeah, like, he knows all of this about her, and he's carefully sort of organized this with her in mind, knowing that she will follow these kind of. And maybe that's sort of doing her character dirty, and I wonder how people think about this as to how Scully acts, whether it's not giving her enough sort of credit
the fact that he's so convincing, and the fact that he's changed, it gives her that, again, it's just that moment's pause where she doesn't. It's almost like she doesn't have a choice in this situation, which again feels like. He's putting in all this effort to make sure he doesn't feel trapped. Just don't take her clothes off.
Yeah. I
just don't know why you'd make that decision in that moment.
Again, it's that Dennis Reynolds inside of him. He can't help but doing these like wrong things.
So yeah, she does decide to stay.
Yeah.
And she also, like you said, agrees to go for dinner with him to meet this contact, and seems very grateful when he picks out a dress for her, which again I thought was creepy, but whatever. Has that ever not been creepy in any film?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
sure in the back in the day it was a big romantic gesture. I feel like it's not romantic. Is that romantic? Maybe that might not be for me to discuss. I can't imagine me turning up and going, "We're going out tonight." Like to Jem, if I turn up and I went, "We're going out tonight," and I got you this pretty little thing to wear, it just feels weird. Like that feels really creepy. I don't know.
It's also awkward at that point because they obviously you can say no, but it's also like, yeah, but they think this is a good...
Don't say that. You can say no.
You can. Again,
but you shouldn't.
There's a lot of the implication in this episode. But no, I always feel like I hear this a lot, like of romantic gestures of things you can do, but they always seem to me like you're taking away somebody's choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I've wished you away on a surprise holiday and stuff like that. And again, no offense to anyone who does it. Like if that's what you're like into, that's completely fine. But I always just feel like I can't imagine in a world where I just went, "We've got a 2-week holiday and we're going now." It's like, what the fuck? You didn't even ask me.
Cancel all your plans.
Exactly. I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, it doesn't seem romantic to me. It just feels like, like you've just forced somebody into something. I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a millennial. That's what I
am. So yeah, they're going to meet this guy. We find out they're actually going to meet Cobra.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to meet him at this restaurant. As they go into this restaurant. I do think the dress is a little bit of a, like I said earlier, a bit of a underhanded tactic to make sure that she's not wearing a wire.
See, I didn't even think about that until you said it, but now after that, I'm like, obviously, yeah, that's what he would do. There
was a glance from Scully at the sort of the like low cut area, and I just thought, I bet you she's thinking, "Oh, this scupper's what I was going to do." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, they go to that restaurant. We might as well just get into that bit. To be fair, it's the same conversation again. This is why it's difficult to talk about, because they do talk about what the plan is going forward. But Cobra doesn't turn up, and what we find is and this is where Skinner drops the bomb. Not Skinner, sorry. Cigarette Smoking Man drops the bomb that this doesn't just cure cancer, this cures human disease.
Yeah.
He admits that it's extraterrestrial in origin, and that this could, in someone's hands, this could completely be a game changer. Which, there's also an interesting line which I found very fascinating, which is, Scully says, "Well, if this was true, then you wouldn't be dying." And he basically says, "I could cure myself, theoretically," but basically says he doesn't deserve to be cured, which I thought was a fascinating insight from this character. And again, it's interesting, regardless of whether he's duping her or not. The fact that he said this, do you know what I mean?
This is the thing. This part I really liked, because this is where I felt like you kind of cut through and saw a bit of what he's really like. He is really pathetic, you know what I mean? Like, he has nothing in his life.
He says how lonely he is. And
exactly. And I believe him for that. Like, he is, because of his job, he has pushed everything aside and everything away. Like, he has nothing left for himself other than this job, which we immediately see after this part where he goes outside and you see that he is setting things up. Yeah. He's even using this as a way to swindle around. But at this one tiny focal point, you see him at his most true, which is this sad, sort of pathetic man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Who has nothing. And I really like when they do this with villains, where you kind of see, like, even the most scheming of, like, most powerful of villains, you see them, they're also as vulnerable as anybody else. You know what I mean? Course, like, he's at the lowest point, really, a person can be, with the most power in the world. I thought it was really interesting, and, like, you get this complete opposite, like, just juxtaposition of all the power but nothing to show for it.
it's always interesting to see that sort of stark contrast, but such a similarity. Like, you can be the most powerful man in the world, or powerful man or woman in the world, not necessarily just towards men, but you can be the most powerful person in the world, go home, and if you shut the lights off and no one's there and you've not spoke to anyone all day, that hits the same whether you're working 9 to 5 or whether you're president. You know what I mean? It's still the same vulnerability. And having that sort of shown to you is, again, he's showing his vulnerability at the table as well. He's like, to show it in front of Scully is a big move, and whether that is just to finally get a trust. Because what I will note is this: Scully gets a note under her dessert plate saying to meet at Calico Bay at sunrise. And I thought to myself, oh, Scully's got the upper hand here. Scully's got the advantage. Yeah. But she chooses to tell Cigarette Smoking Man about the notes. Yeah. So I do wonder, what did the trust game work? Because I didn't think there was any reason for Scully to tell Cigarette Smoking Man. She had, as far as she's aware, she's meeting up with this guy. This guy doesn't want Cigarette Smoking Man's arranged a meeting, but this guy doesn't want Cigarette Smoking Man to know because he's handed. He could have just turned up at the restaurant. Yeah, but he didn't. He handed her a note, and so they could have just gone home and went, "Oh, that didn't work," and she got on a boat the next morning without him knowing. I think he was at the restaurant. He just didn't introduce himself because you see him sat in the distance watching the table, basically at one point. Yeah, but I don't think they knew it was him. No, they didn't know he did. Because Skinner does go to the guy that's been following him, and he tells them that he hasn't shown, and then he confesses basically that this is a plan where he says, "Just do your job." Yeah, basically, yeah. Because they've never met him, they just only know him from contact. So they were hoping for the meet here, but obviously, they're going to meet later. Oh, he was hoping to meet Scully later. Now, this guy, all we know from this guy that's been following them is that he's an angry, bald guy. Yes. That's what we know about him, right? Yeah. Those are the two facts. We've got facts about this guy. We're about to learn a lot more about him as he becomes an integral plot in this next scene. The next morning, Cigarette Smoking Man and Scully get in a boat, go to meet this guy. Cigarette Smoking Man lets her go in a boat on her own. Yeah. Goes to meet this guy. This guy hands her a disc, but speaks as if he's been speaking to her for months. And this is where it sort of starts to click in our head that Cigarette Smoking Man's been speaking to this guy to try and get him to come out, to give him what the information he has, because he knew he wouldn't trust him, he'd trust Scully. And he's used Scully to get to him. Basically, yeah. He's completely set up this meeting under her nose, basically. However, the plot almost runs afoul, because Cigarette Smoking Man has hired the worst sniper in the world. Right. I wrote down on this man 100% should not miss. Obviously he gets the first shot, the guy's standing up in the air. This guy's... He gets the first shot in the chest. Go for the headshot. No, in fairness, though, I will sympathise with him there. Apparently, snipers these days are taught shoot the body. You meant to shoot the body. Don't come to me with all... No. Don't come to me with all this. Right. Go for the head. That's always been the way. Even so, he gets this guy, probably going to kill him. That's fine. Okay. The missing Scully is... Do you know when you hear angry people talking about plot armor and stuff like that? And they're not going to die because this, that, and the other. This was the most egregious example of that I've ever seen. You see him line the shot up for about 7 seconds. Yeah. At this point, it's obviously you see why the second shot misses. But again, he could have taken 7 shots in the time that happens. Yeah. It's one of those things where you can kind of see that they've gone, oh yeah, and the sniper on the lake, and then he misses. Yeah, I guess okay, that'll work. It doesn't feel like anybody's that's a good way out of this solution. You know, he should have just shot him from the beginning. You know what I mean? I know they're doing it for Smoking Man. Yeah, so there's no tension. So he shoots this guy, and then as he's lining up the next shot, just immediately shoots. That's what happens. That's before he can kill Scully. Cigarette Smoking Man turns up and kills the sniper. Whether that's to protect Scully, we're not sure, or whether that's to give a sort of a bit of credence to his sort of cover story that like, oh, you got the disc, but there was nothing on it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but he wasn't. He saved Scully, and Scully goes back, gives Cigarette Smoking Man the disc, who we assume manages to switch it.
Now, again,
in half a second.
Yeah. So this point now, at the time, I was like, oh, he's done the old switcheroo, like, which is fine. Like, yeah, maybe at the end of the day, we don't know. Maybe this guy's trained in he's done magician like card tricks. He knows how. He knows how to do sleight of hand. I'm gonna let that slide. That's fine. I'm not believing for a second that Scully's going to hand this straight to him.
Yeah, after being shot at.
After being shot at. Maybe she was rattled. I don't know. Yeah. She's an FBI agent, though. She's probably not like...
I think they do a good job of showing the fact that she is actually rattled.
Yeah.
I think they do a very good job of that, because she's got herself in a position that Mulder usually gets herself in. And it's this is why this is an interesting episode, because she got herself in that position. Because he played on the thing that matters to her, which is her, like, morals.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And rather than, like, Mulder would get himself in this position because of his belief in aliens, whereas he's played on her beliefs and fell for what she wanted to believe rather than... And so I do think they do a good job of explaining the fact that any bad decisions that Scully makes, I think, are perfectly understandable, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of those, like, I'm nitpicking really here. I'm not like, oh, I hate this episode because of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those where I just thought it was like, when you sit back and go, why would she do that? Like, but yeah, really, it probably is because she's just been shot at.
Why would Cigarette Smoking Man have those pajamas in his house?
He's planned this all along, hasn't he?
That's even weirder, though. Like,
that is, yeah.
Has he planned to undress her? Before the grand plot,
or he's an opportunist,
or does he keep it just in case a girl happens to pass out in his car?
Yeah, I mean, now you start saying these things.
Actually, no, she did pack a bag. They were probably Scully's.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that means he's gone through her bag. I'll just look through her bag for her clothes.
So I just think that as we went. Right, let's wrap up this episode. So. Scully takes the disc back to Mulder. There's a little bit of a tension between Mulder and Scully. It's never said.
He looks fuming, doesn't he?
He does, which again, I think is so unfair considering the amount of times that this happens to him.
I know, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He wanders off all the time and leaves Scully in the lurch, which he does it once and he's pissed off.
Especially Cigarette Smoke Man. How many times did he let him down a dark path? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But Scully looks devastated. She keeps looking at Mulder. Mulder doesn't even make eye contact with her. And as the lone gunmen check what's on the CD, they find out it's blank. And then we find out that Cigarette Smoking Man must have swapped the discs because he's got a copy of the disc by the fire, back in his suit, as he lights up a cigarette towards the end of the episode. But the end was the other thing was Mulder tells Scully that you've been used. It all makes sense to Mulder, and I think it's one of those things where it makes sense to anyone that stood back from it. But like, she's still professing that I saw it. It seemed so real to me, and he's saying it's because you wanted it to be real, not because it was. But Mulder does make a fair point of the one thing he can't figure out is why she's still alive, and that's the one question that we're left with: why did he save Scully? Yeah. But we're not sure. But the last shot of the whole thing is Cigarette Smoking Man throwing the disc into the lake. What do you think of this episode?
So, mixed feelings on it. I thought it was the actual, like, scenes between between Scully and Cigarette Smoking Man. I thought really interesting. Like, we never see this chemistry like between them because
very rarely at least.
Yeah, it's quite short if we do because it's always Mulder's there and it's Mulder and Cigarette Smoking Man. So it's interesting that we have this this kind of like first time meeting between the two of them like on their own, and we get some really good scenes from there, and we get to see a bit more of Cigarette Smoking Man and what he's like, I guess, like in his gilet and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we get to see all that, and I thought that was really, really good, and I enjoyed all of that stuff. The trouble is, by the end of the episode, I just couldn't help but shake the feeling of what was the point of this episode.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, the way they set it up was like, we've got this cure for cancer, we've did all this stuff, it's extraterrestrial. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like moving some of the plot forward, I guess. And by the end of it, it's like, not really. We just kind of see this episode where we have a bit of a character study of Cigarette Smoking Man and a bit of character study on Scully. And that's about it, really, which is good. Like, I think that it's a good sort of exploration of their characters. But ultimately, the plot, I didn't think went anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not as if, like, it was something different. Like, we are led to believe that it is what he says it is. Like, the cure. Because he did cure Scully. He did cure the kid at the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like someone else had information about this and he just needs to get it. Maybe it's just a sort of a Monster of the Week episode kind of thing, where it's like, this is just showing how he's still around, he's still nefarious, he's still using people to get what he wants, despite like the sort of the downfall of the Syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Yeah, I do understand where you're coming from. I quite enjoyed this episode, but more for the fact of like seeing Scully fall for it and seeing what drives Scully to fall for this. Like, Scully can usually keep a level head in these situations because she's not desperate to believe that aliens are real like Mulder is.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to being desperate to believe that she can save everybody, that's what turned her. And so I thought that was interesting. I said, like, more as a character piece.
Yeah. And as I say, like, I'm not going to like use that completely against it, because there might be something in a later episode where this becomes more relevant to that. So you can always do that as well. So I'm not going to completely write it off as, oh, what's the point in all this? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, but that's the only thing that I can bring the episode down for, if you know what I mean.
I get that.
Luke's production notes.
William B. Davis, who portrayed the Smoking Man, Cigarette Smoking Man, get his name right, wanted to write an episode in which his character attempted to seduce Scully with something that she cared about, medical knowledge. Davis approached series creator Chris Carter with the idea, and Carter was intrigued. He assigned executive producer Frank Spotnitz to work with Davis and craft a fully fledged script. So he basically hustled his way to the writing this. Basically.
I like that, though, because, again, that's what intrigued me about the episode. So he obviously had a sort of like a nugget of an idea and sort of made it into something, which is quite cool.
Right. This next one. Why didn't I leave this in? The script was revised several times, and many of Davis's scenes were cut, including one that featured the cigarette smoking man teaching Scully how to water ski.
It's only just begun.
Yeah,
They fall into the water.
Too romantic comedy, that is.
I needed to see that. That would have turned the episode around for me.
I watched a program the other day talking of romantic comedies. A tangent here. I'll be really quick. And it was talking about, do you know the Japanese film Audition?
Yes, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
So I won't go into too much detail then to not spoil it then. But somebody described that film as a subversion of romantic comedies, whereas like romantic comedies are, if you look at them like from the outside, like as a normal thing, you go, oh, it's nice and sweet in it.
Yeah.
If you take that person's actions into real life, they are a maniac. Like the stuff they do is insane. Like, and you would like call the police on them, like if people did some of the stuff on it. But yeah, they were saying like Audition, because it's a horror film, takes all of that stuff and then they actually do it and you go, Jesus Christ.
Like real life reactions to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I imagine
skiing is romantic. Come on.
Well,
I think that's lovely. Oh, I'd have loved to have seen that.
What's not to love about that? Yeah, especially if he had the shoot for it as well, the gilet. Imagine.
Yeah, he looked great on the water.
But anyway, we missed out on that.
It just flies past in Mulder's red speedos.
Just get it all into one episode. Yeah. The episode's original script also featured. Oh, God. You got more content.
Just imagine them both walking through the zoo with ice creams, like putting their faces in those, like, you know, those like pictures with the
his
faces.
and hers pictures. Yeah. We should write an episode fanfic, basically.
That's a great fanfic, yeah.
The episode's original script also featured Alex Krycek, whose presence was integral to the original storyline, but this story element was two was cut. So yeah, we almost had Krycek on the case as well. So.
I think that'd have been too much.
Probably, yeah.
I don't think we need to do.
I think it's probably better to just keep it as these two. Yeah, and it keeps the plot tighter, but yeah. While Davis saw his character as a romantic hero, Carter and Spotnitz were reluctant to have Scully trust this man she spent 7 years hating so easily. Eventually, the producers tweaked the script, adding the reality of the X-Files' existing mythos and past character development to ease the transition. Davis later noted, "I was basically happy with the way the episode turned out, despite the fact that there were many other ideas that I had that I did not get to see. My original concept of the story was that Cigarette Smoking Man was a much better actor at winning Scully's affection, and that Scully was less resistant to this attention to her."
Okay. I think it was right to overrule them.
Yeah,
You can't have Scully just go roll over and let her belly get tickled. Do you know what I mean?
Essentially, yeah. It does seem a bit like out of character, like, yeah, for everything that she's been through and knows. Yeah. She does need a bit more convincing, I think. Because the Smoky Man was able to manipulate Scully, Carter later referred to Enemy as the creepiest episode of the year. I mean, we've gone through that in depth. We agree.
For sure. It's just wild. It is wild. I just don't feel like we spent enough time, like, not us, like the show didn't spend enough time going, what on earth has happened here?
Yeah.
I want the conversation of Scully going, I trusted him, he was fine, he undressed me. And we go, whoa, what?
Yeah. I like how we've had a man who can literally stretch and crawl into your apartment, and he's less creepy than this guy. While elements of the episode were partially inspired by Shakespeare's play Richard III, namely Richard's attempts to woo Lady Anne. I've never seen never.
Me neither. Yeah, I've got to put that right, to be honest, because I've seen most, well, I've not seen, I've read or like watched adaptations of most of Shakespeare's plays. Richard III's one that sort of eluded me. Yeah.
It's about Richard's attempt to woo Lady Anne, apparently, so there you go. Davis initially wrote... Davis initially wrote the episodes so that he could act with Gillian Anderson. He later noted, "If they're not going to give me a scene with Gillian, I'll just have to write one myself."
Oh, he's creepy himself. I'm just joking. He seems like a good dude.
I said that with a tinge of anger because I think he was just like, "God damn it, I'll do it myself." Finally, Enemy was directed by Rob Bowman and marked his last contribution to the show. Regarding his departure, he later said, "Artistically, I felt like I couldn't help anymore." So there we go. Yeah, we have some leavers in the show as well.
Wow, he's been with us for a while as well.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, for a long time. But yeah, well, I guess he doesn't even come back for the reboot either because they would have noted there. So yeah, last of Rob Bowman's episodes.
Good episodes got on.
Well, yeah, definitely. We're talking of good episodes. Critic X-Files.
It stinks.
Welcome to the Critic X-Files.
What would you give this episode?
I'm fond of it. Can't really explain the reason why, because as we said quite a few times, not a lot happens. I just like delving into characters and like their sort of like ambitions and their wants and needs, and I feel like we got a lot of that. Scully, it being very real, and Cigarette Smoking Man feeling real, but then realizing the deceit of it all. And then we got a shot of the lone gunman in disguise. So I'm going to give this an 8.
An 8, yeah. That's a fair score, yeah. I didn't give it much less. I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it for what it was, but yeah, as I mentioned, I felt like it could have done more with driving the plot forward, personally, but it's not bad. A 7, I think, strong score. Well,
what did the people say?
The people agree with you exactly, because out of 2,877 votes, we got an 8 on the dot.
Nice.
So there we go.
Man of the people, that's what they call me.
You are a man of the people of 2 continents now.
And 9 states.
And 9 states. There you go. Well, the man of many states, I'll let you finish off the episode.
Yeah, not going to... Honestly, for the time that I've landed and the time that we've recorded this, I've mostly been sleeping and trying to sort of sort out not only my sleeping pattern, but also, like, I'm hungry at, like, 1 o'clock in the morning and, like, don't want to eat throughout the rest of the day. I'm basically, my body clock's just messed up. So I've not had a chance to go through all, like, the tweets and stuff like that. So get your tweets in. We'll read some of them out next week instead. Just get in touch with us at Most Unwanted Pod on Twitter. But apart from that, yeah, we'll speak to you next week. Do you know what next week's episode's called, Luke?
Next week's episode is called Chimera. So
Chimera.
It could be about an amalgamated creature, maybe, or it could just be, I don't know, some name of a
organization.
yeah.
Most likely.
Who knows? Yeah.
So yeah, we will see you for that one next week. But for now, it's a bye from me.
It's a bye from me.